Okay.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Wholly Bliss. We have to pardon, we had a few little technical difficulties, but it's all good. I am going to start a new series on, instead of just me talking into or sharing a video, I want to connect with people. And over the years, Facebook has been a great conduit to meet really neat people. And my first guest, Karen Dennison, is she's definitely someone that I have known. We were talking before the interview. We've known each other, I think, like 10 years.
That's amazing.
Like, where does time pass?
Oh.
It goes so fast. But there are a couple things I want to share with you about Karen. She's an entrepreneur, which I have a heart for women who are entrepreneurs.
Serial entrepreneur?
She's a serial entrepreneur. And that's actually how we met. We met in a program, and I'll share a little bit about that later. She's a wonderful mother, wife, grandmother. I don't know what her grandchildren call her, but just hearing some of the wonderful stories about her time with her grandchildren is just really awesome, and a wonderful friend. One really neat thing, something interesting that you don't hear a lot from people in this day and age, she loves to quilt.
I do.
And she's got some beautiful quilts, so you'll have to friend her and see if she'll share some pictures of some of her beautiful creations over the years. She is a TEDx speaker. And I remember the day it was just random, got a call from Karen, and she was letting me know that she had gotten this email from TEDx and sourced it and found out it was actually TEDx, the organization. And you should go online and check out her speech, her TED Talk. It's really, really neat, and she's going to share a little bit about that. But as you know, this group is called Wholly Bliss, and it's in the pursuit of your dreams. And one thing that I'm passionate about with Wholly Bliss and just finding joy, I feel like it's incumbent upon each of us to really find our joy. That's not something that comes outside of us. That's something that we're responsible for. That's part of our job. It's not natural to a lot of people because schooling doesn't really affirm joy. College doesn't affirm joy. At most traditional work settings, it doesn't affirm joy either. It's kind of like a personal journey, a rites of passage, so to speak. And so,
well, not just that, but in my spirituality, it's required. It's in Christianity, they say, no, you have to be joyful. So, requirement.
There you go. So I'm really passionate about it. But recently I was talking to Karen, and we were talking about, we always solve the world's troubles in a day whenever we're on the phone, at whatever time frame we're on the phone. And she was telling me that she finished 2 books in a relatively short period of time. I think like 2 months or something like that. So that's one of the things that I want her to share with us today about. And for someone to finish 2 books in 2 months, they've got to have some joy, some inner motivation. There's got to be something going on to drive that behavior. So I want to talk to her about that. Care to expound on how did it start off with 2 books or just 1 or what?
No, it didn't start out with, it started out with no books. I did a little bit of research. So what I'm doing right now is I have 40 years of experience in employment. I started off as a headhunter in employment agencies and a headhunter. I was in HR. I've done career coaching, all of that stuff. And I'm pretty magic about being able to get somebody to the next step. So I thought to myself, I really want to work with first and second level managers who, so they've gotten their first promotion. That comes because basically you're competent at your job. But once you get there, there's a whole different set of skills you need to be able to get to the next and the next steps, and those aren't taught. So, okay, that's where I want my target market is, like I said, first and second level managers, 25 to 45 years old, right in there. So I talked to a bunch of them and I said, if I could offer you any of this whole menu of stuff that I could tell you, and it included how to write a resume, how to find where the job openings were, how to prepare yourself for an interview correctly, when you get a job, how to set yourself up so that they're looking at you for the next promotion. All of those things, which would you really like to know about? And by far, by like 1,000%, they chose something I wouldn't have ever guessed, is networking skills. Well, I happen to know like the best networker ever. She's astounding. And so I called her up and I said, I want to do this interview with you. So we did this 45-minute interview, and I set that up as my opt-in offer for emails. So I've got this, but once they opt in for that, it takes you to the next step, which is something for sale. Well, that was so if networking was like way ahead of everybody else, the next step that was pretty far ahead of everybody else was time management. A skill that I absolutely do not own. I have not a good relationship with the whole chronology thing ever. So, but that's what they wanted, this whole time management thing. So I started doing some research. More and more research I did, the more I found out that in fact, the reason why generic time management systems don't ever work. How many of you bought, Alicia, like time management things? They're pretty good.
So many.
But right, and then you fall off the wagon. Okay, so the reason why they don't work for you or for anybody else is because we're not generic. I came to the conclusion that time is about organization, external and internal organization. It's about priorities. So why are you doing what you're doing? Where is that getting you to? And it's about consciousness, being here now. So what my favorite game in my head was, whatever I'm doing is the wrong thing, right? So I'm writing my book, but I should be fixing dinner, and I need to get the laundry done, and I have, oh gosh, that podcast that I haven't done. So wherever you are, you're not there because you're busy with everything else in your head. Because your brain actually says, your subconscious knows the whole list of to-dos, and it doesn't have any concept of time. So what it's doing is it's going, but you didn't clean the garage, and you didn't make Easter dinner, and you didn't, right? All this stuff. So I'm finding out all of this, and it's just totally not what I've been reading in my 1,362 time management systems I purchased, right? And I'm thinking, people don't know this. They don't know any of this stuff. So I start pulling it all together. Well, at the same time, I start listening to, I don't know if any of your listeners are familiar with Ed Dale, but he's an Australian network marketer. I've been doing it for 20 years, very successful. And he started talking about the entrepreneurial brain and what makes us the way we are. And so that and writing skills and all this stuff. So it everything kind of mushed together at the same time. So here's my writing thing. And in fact, I started on a new book today, this morning. I'm pretty clear about what the process is. I start in 50-minute intervals, and that's really important because the human brain, we can't deal in larger than 50 minutes. We can pretend we do. We can sit there and fuss with ourselves, but in reality, after 50 minutes, get up and give yourself a break for 5 minutes because you'll do better when you get back. That's well. So I started. So what happens is I go through for 50 minutes and I just research it because you can find out anything about anything right online. So I just start copy and pasting. into a document. 160, 360 pages of that. Just articles and comments and Amazon reviews and everything. I then go through, so that's the first step, is culminating, gathering together all of this big mass of information. I then go through and look at what's important, what I think is important in it, and I take 3x5 cards and I actually write down no more than, that's the whole amount of information I can put. I write down thoughts from everything. So let's look at mindfulness. So you have an article on mindfulness, and it has a definition of what it is, and then it has why it's important, and it has some exercises, right? So let's say it has those 3 things. Well, if I'm pulling from 50 different articles, all 50 of them have basically some of those elements, right? So I'm writing down different people's thoughts. I'm making sure that I reference them, because I don't want to, I need to credit the people that I need to credit. And I write down on 3x5 cards all of the information. Well, that takes my hundreds of pages into like a pile of 3x5 cards, but it also, there's a lot of extra stuff that I'm just taking out of it. So I write all those cards out, and then I can spread them out and kind of put them in different piles and put them in different orders and look at it. And now I've got a really easy way of putting, this chapter has this chapter has that, this chapter has that. And then I'm just I'm typing on my computer from my 3x5 cards in my words and in my different kind of special spin to the whole thing. And then I hand it to my husband, and he has to edit it. But that was the thing, is that if I have to write a book, that was like but if I've got like a pile of cards and I've got them in different stacks, and I may need to, fill in some information here or do something there, that's fine. But I've got the whole kind of all of the information that I need, and the references and the research and all of this other stuff. So the time management book was about, it has a ton of like neurological stuff in it, and it's got a ton of practical things, and it's got a ton of, these are the different apps to use, or the different systems, and why these work for these kind of people and they don't work for these kind of people, and all of this other stuff. So it was easy to look at what the research was, and then just go through and type that in, and without, I'm not copying anybody's work. No plagiarism going on, but it's just me, looking at all of this research and going, okay, this makes sense, and this is what this means. And in China, they did a study with people, and it turns out that mindfulness meditation increased their grades by 0.5%. And I'm making it up, but it was something like that. And that, this happened with this. Aetna Insurance did a mindfulness program, and it turned out that people ended up with an extra 5% of work efficiency, which made the company extra, thousands of whatever. But it was all about making sure that this happened. So I wrote the book. It turned out to be 170 pages, and I did it in a couple of weeks. And a lot of it was waiting for Bob to edit it, because you want to get somebody else to do that. But it was really good. It was really easy to do. So then I thought, okay, so what bonuses am I going to add to whatever? Well, time management doesn't mean anything if you can't set good, and this is working from a corporate perspective, if you're not setting good workplace boundaries. Because if you're not setting good workplace boundaries, people are pulling at you, right? So then your time goals
elude you.
Go out the window. Exactly. So I said, well, let me look at that. So I did the same thing, wrote a 50-page guide on boundaries, design the career of your dreams by learning to say no. And so I added that into it. So those are my 2 books. And it was really painless, because I tried to write a book years and years ago, and it was just like, it goes on forever. I've got I've got a problem with perfection, which protects me from actually ever doing anything, because it's not perfect enough yet. So that was the thing. As long as if I can get it good enough and done, then people are going to benefit from it. And I've gotten really good responses from it.
That is really, really awesome. That was, and actually, as I was listening to you go through your methodology, your mode of operation, that's actually a great video or something you could share in what you're doing to actually explain your product, like what you had talked about, your funnel, basically. So really neat. So when you were doing this, you sound like you encouraged, or you created some behaviors to get your project done. Did the parts, I guess what I'm trying to get to, or what I'm trying to articulate is, what encouraged you to use that methodology of going and finding, basically sorting. I remember when I was in school, there was a woman that was really good, and she had a schmancy way of and charged a lot of money for the procreation of ideas. Mm-hmm. And so she was really handy with Post-it notes, and it just kind of drove me crazy, because it just was overwhelming. But she charged a lot of money to do what she was doing. But what I'm wondering is, did that process itself create some excitement or some joy or some it just seemed like that might have encouraged it, might not have been the goal, but that's where you got.
No, but it did, because I was getting out of overwhelm. It was because the thought of writing a book is huge. The thought of doing 50 minutes of pulling articles off of the computer is not huge. Mm-mm. So it's okay. So here's I'm going to tell you all of my deficiencies. The other one is the inability to see beyond what my goal is. And a little story about that. I hired my sister to get me to do stuff, because only sisters can poke you that way, right? Mm-hmm. So it was, okay, Katie, I need to go, my baby sister, I need to go to the library. I need to go to the post office today. I have to go to the post office. So she calls me up and she says, did you go to the post office? I haven't done it yet. I got to do some other stuff. She says, okay. Calls me an hour, 2 hours later. Did you go to the post office? No, I didn't go to the post office yet. I'm not ready. So she calls me up a couple hours later and says, I said, get off of me about the post office. Says, I'll get off of you about the post office when you tell me you've gone to the post office. And I said, she goes, go to the post office right now. I said, I can't go to the post. And in the meantime, I'm thinking to myself, what is wrong with me? There are hundreds of millions of people who are able to go to the post office. How come I can't do that? So there's all of that self-recrimination also. So she says, go to the post office right now. I go, Katie, I can't, because I don't even have the envelopes and the cards to put the things into. Oh, I don't need to go to the post office. I need to go to Barnes and Noble. Right? But I didn't see all of those steps that I had to accomplish before I went to the post office. I didn't see, those were totally invisible to me. So in writing the book, and the reason why I tell that story is because writing the book, all of those steps, all I was looking at is, I got to write a book. I'm going to pet the dog, and I'm going to play some, do a crossword puzzle, and right? All of those steps were invisible, and I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to get to the post office because I didn't know. But doing it this way, I wasn't getting to the post office. All I was doing was the next step. All I was doing was putting a bunch of research into a document. All I was doing was going through the document and writing out 10,000 3x5 cards. And that handwriting, that is really important. It puts you in a position where you can move things around and sort, but it also there's some connection between writing and your brain
mm-hmm.
that is really important, that doesn't happen on the computer.
Right.
So that brought me information that I got to sort out in my brain, right, how things were going to work and how it was all going to happen. So what happened when you ask about the joy was that writing a book in 3 weeks was effortless. All it was baby steps. None of them were hard, and all of them were something that I knew what the next step was. Does that make any sense?
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And it wasn't a process that you had the opportunity or the time to actually put together beforehand. You decided you were going to write the book, and you just started with, let me go on a fact finding. Let me find some of the elements, some of the germane information that I need to write about. And so that was really neat how you were self-guided through writing your book. And it did become a joy because it was kind of cyclical. Mm-hmm. One step led you to another step, which led you to another step, which led you to another step. And that's kind of how entrepreneurship really...
Well, and it's the only way we can actually do anything, right? Is take the next step. Because I couldn't go to the post office. I had to go get note cards. So the thing was that the only way you can actually do anything, you can't build a bridge. You can only do all of the little pieces that result in a big bridge being built.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. So could you share with us where we can find these wonderful books?
Well, I can. Understand that the funnel is the whole networking thing, which for an entrepreneur, for someone in corporate America, for anybody, is really, really important. And oh my goodness, this little one that I did the interview with is just amazing at it. Amazing. But that is so that's the first step you have to do you have to get the free networking video before you can get to the page that has the book. That is at keystotheexecutivesuite.net, because I've got a dog here that's going crazy.
Oh, no worries.
Keystotheexecutivesuite.net, which it'll have you enter your email address and you get access to the video. It's a 45-minute little networking class, but that'll take you to a sales page that has the ebook and the ebook and a lot of different bonuses. So the time management book, Own Your Calendar. There was an awesome quote. Let me think if I can remember. As you get busy in your career, especially as you get more responsibilities, and I'm mangling this quote, but it says this: you have to become completely maniacal about owning your calendar. Mm-hmm. And it was said by a woman who is the CEO of asset management for Chase Morgan.
Oh, maybe. Okay.
So
time is money.
Somebody who knows that, right? And so that's where I got the title. She says you have to become maniacally focused on owning your calendar. So that's what it is. Own your calendar. It's your life. It's your life. So with that comes one of the bonuses is the book on boundaries. And there's some other quick start guides and different stuff in there. There's an awesome set of videos actually on the methodology that made Toyota the amazing company that it is in
Quality
in the
control.
70s,
Okay.
the Kanban boards and all of that stuff. It's an amazing technology and what they did and how you can use that in your own life. So that's one of the bonuses. It's all there. Keys to the executivesuite.net.
And for all those viewing the video, I will have a link to her information in the post. So you'll be able to get that information directly under the video. Before we close, I did want you to share with us a little bit about your TED Talk and how that came to be for you.
I received an invitation to apply for a TED Talk. And the TED Talk was going to be at the LA Technical Institute, which I live in Redondo Beach, California, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. Figured, that cool, it's perfect. And the theme of the TED Talk was, it's your world. And my response was, it's only your world if you risk creating it. If you don't, then it's somebody else's world imposed upon you. But the risk of creating that means that you're going to have to fail. So the TED Talk is something to the order of you have to fail to succeed. And so I sent off this thing expecting, who's going to want, it's your world, and my thing is you have to fail. So I think, nobody's going to respond to this. So a couple months later, I get a congratulations that says, "Congratulations, we're looking forward to seeing you in South Dakota." What? 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 Well, apparently LA did not stand for Los Angeles or Louisiana. It stood for Lake Area, Waterton, South Dakota. I go, okay, I guess I'm going to South Dakota. So I went there. I spoke to the students at the Institute, and it was just such a fabulous experience. I absolutely loved it. And it's available on YouTube. So you do Karen Dennison TEDx, it comes up first. So it's awesome.
That is really awesome. Well, before we close, because one thing that I've shared over the years, and people, it makes sense, but it doesn't actually come to mind when you first think about it. So I believe that God reigns in ideas. And it is our job to see those ideas become, to see them materialize. And it's so neat to hear you talk about your method of operation, or how you came across for yourself getting these books out so quickly, going step by step by step. And then as we're talking about it, you have a sales funnel. So all this is just going to say there's always a way. And it's really important to make sure that the rain comes down, but we're compensated for our gifts, our loves and our ideas and our joys. Like my husband, who's a banker, he always says, you don't want to do a hobby, you need to get paid. He was like, it's a hobby. He said, a hobby's not a hobby anymore until you get compensated for that gift, service, product, whatever. So,
well, and here's what's important about that. And I actually, yesterday in my day timer, I was looking, yesterday in my day timer, there was a quote it said, if you have knowledge, let others light their candle in it, by Margaret Fuller. And that just reminded me that when you were saying that, we have a responsibility, we have an obligation to make other people's lives easier by what we know and what we do. And unfortunately, just how we're hardwired, if they're not paying for that, they don't take it seriously.
Right.
So it's really important. It's really important that you be compensated, because that's the only way you're going to help them.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll close. Thank you so much. I am so honored that you said okay, and this has just been really wonderful. It's going to be on Wholly Bliss, but I'm also going to post this on my Facebook page. Thanks so much, Karen.
Oh,
Have
I
a great
love
one.
time with you, Alicia.
Bye-bye.
Bye.